I'm going to start tonight's show by telling you about a player. This player, with 6 years in the majors, had a career batting average of 200. Actually, .1997 rounded up. He had 14 career home runs. He was a catcher who most of the time played backup or backup to the backup. Now, let me tell you about WAR, or wins above replacement. This is a stat which compares players and their contributions, offensive or defensive, to a replacement player who might come up from the minors or from another team to fill in. Great players like Aaron Judge can have a season WAR above 9. But WAR is also cumulative, it adds up. So Judge, who's played 10 seasons, has a career WAR of 62.3. Now, catchers typically have lower WARs offensively because they contribute less offensively. Yogi Berra, for instance, over a 19-year career, had a WAR of 59.5. But our guy, the main focus of tonight's episode, had a career WAR of -1. Now, defensively, this man did lead the league in 1967 in two categories: number of passed balls and number of errors committed for a catcher. In most cases, a player like this would be completely, utterly forgotten. Except this player did something that no one else in the history of baseball was able to do: turn his 6 years of mediocrity into incredible fame and fortune. And it wasn't just the sheer quantity of his self-deprecating jokes. It was the creativity, the imagination with which he used humor to make fun of himself. And for this, he was a singular entity, one of a kind. His name is Bob Uecker. And over the course of his long and storied broadcasting career, he managed to elevate his nickname, Mr. Baseball, from completely ironic to completely authentic. Inside baseball, he was lacking, but once out of the game, he was a genius in using his failure to make millions laugh year after year after year. But he also did something else incredible. He helped people remember that it's just a game until it's not. Tonight, I bring you the story of Mr. Baseball. From historic milestones
That did it! Holy cow! A strikeout gets his 300th career win, and I tell you, this is...
to euphoric moments shared by millions.
In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened.
To the simple banter that brought us together.
Yeah, it's foul. Malachi with the call. I love that name.
It's a good name.
When you and I have a child together, we should name him Malachi.
Welcome to the Midnight Library of Baseball, Season 4, the broadcast that raised us, from radio to television and beyond. I'm Ben Orlando. If you don't know Bob Uecker as a player, which you probably don't, you might know him as a broadcaster who spent more than 50 years announcing for the Milwaukee Brewers.
The stretch. Jackson leads the pitch. Is hit over Cooper's head to right, a base hit. Here is Reggie turning second, trying for third. Moore's going to have a play on him to throw. In time to get Jackson.
You also might know him from a run of Miller Lite commercials during the 80s.
All right, maybe I wasn't the greatest player of all time, but fans, they forgive and forget. When I go in here, they'll be buying me my favorite beer, light beer from Miller. You, Bob Uecker?
He starred in the popular 80s sitcom Mr. Belvedere, which ran for 6 seasons. But on the widest scope, Bob Uecker is known by fans and non-fans for his role in the popular baseball film Major League.
On into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed.
There were, of course, players in history who were able to poke fun at themselves to get a laugh. But Bob Uecker was a genius in how he went about tearing himself apart. Now, I think it's important to clarify the difference between good-natured self-deprecation and harmful self-attack. Harmful self-attack or self-criticism is when we tell ourselves, "You're no good. You're a failure. You don't deserve good things." And this inner voice makes us feel bad. It destroys our confidence and lowers our self-esteem. From everything I've read and watched and listened to, Bob Uecker employed good-natured, healthy self-deprecation because he was extremely confident and sure of himself. And maybe this was an act, but from public appearances to low-key interviews, he seemed comfortable in himself. And in fact, he was so confident that he could make himself appear to be a terrible ball player without outwardly shrinking one bit. What really surprised me when I watched old clips of him on The Tonight Show was his dry wit. And one might say bone dry. I'm going to play a clip of him talking to Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show. So just imagine, while they're talking, Bob Uecker sits in the guest chair, completely serious the whole time, while Johnny Carson tries and often fails to keep a straight face.
Most athletes, for some reason, go through kind of rituals or superstitions. They wear the same uniform, the same pair of socks. Now, does that run in all athletic
Well, I guess I had certain things that used to bother me. Maybe my last time at bat, I'd look in the visitor's dugout and see all the guys sitting there with their street clothes on.
When I watched this, I thought, well, maybe he's nervous. Maybe he's trying out a persona early in his life after baseball. But then I watched year after year of Uecker on The Tonight Show. He made no less than 100 appearances, by the way. And each show I watched, there he was again, completely deadpan, cool as a cucumber. Now, most guys would get up there and crack themselves up with their jokes. They'd let you know they were in on it. Not Bob Uecker. He took a different route, and it worked for him. It also created this mystery because sometimes when he was telling a story, he was serious. And for people watching, listening to this man they knew was supposed to be funny, they weren't sure sometimes whether he was being funny or serious. Here's a good example.
Did you have a dream of being a Major League Baseball player?
I didn't only want baseball. I wanted track and field, too, I guess. I think I was the youngest kid in Milwaukee to participate in a hammer throw. I threw a 16-pound hammer. I was 15 years old, freshman year in high school. I threw a 16-pound hammer. I was the youngest kid in Milwaukee to throw a 16-pound hammer. Yeah. And about 8 minutes later, I became the youngest kid to wear a truss in Milwaukee.
That was the same. Well, you shouldn't start too young with sports like that.
Yeah, it blows you up like this.
Yes, I know.
What this does is allow people to laugh even harder when they do recognize true humor because now they can release the tension. And something else Uecker had was timing. He never rushed it. He'd sit there. He'd let the pause lengthen before coming in with the punchline. And this is a skill of a top-tier comedian. Uecker's rise from failed ball player to failed scout to broadcaster and celebrity was pretty quick. He first appeared on The Tonight Show in 1971. Imagine if he'd remained a scout. But that was not in the cards. According to Bud Selig, former baseball commissioner and owner of the Milwaukee Brewers at the time, quote, "Worst scout I ever had. We sent him up to the Northern League, and the next thing I know, Frank Lane, the general manager, comes raging into my office asking what kind of scout I hired. The report was smeared with gravy and mashed potatoes." End quote. Apparently, Uecker had gotten food all over his scouting report, so it was illegible. But Selig must have seen something because he quickly moved Uecker into the broadcast booth, where his humor quickly caught everyone's attention. How funny was Bob Uecker? In a documentary about Uecker made for the MLB network, former NBC Sports president Dick Ebersol recalled a conversation he'd had with Late Show host Johnny Carson. Carson told Ebersol that, in many ways, Bob Uecker was the funniest man he'd ever met. That's quite a bold statement coming from a guy who was a comedian himself and who'd spoken with thousands of quote unquote funny people over the years. But it wasn't just the fact that Uecker made fun of himself or joked about his life. It was the creative bits he came up with, like this.
Most kids have a dream. They want to be a baseball player, a fireman. When you were a little kid, was that the goal you'd set for yourself? Someday be a famous baseball player?
I think it happened before I was born.
Do you believe in that
I believe in it because I did it. You have a lot of kids prior to being born, 5-6 months before they're born, just laying there and doing nothing. I started, just with sit-ups, doing just against the wall cavity, just pushing back and forth. When you
isometrics in the
fill yourself up a little bit. My mother was not a big woman, but a decent size where I was able to run around a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think when that time came, when you're ready to go, a normal kid might panic. What's happened? Boom, everything goes.
Yeah.
I was ready for it.
This is a couple of years after that first clip, but Uecker is as deadpan as ever. And throughout his life, Uecker couldn't help being funny or poking fun at seemingly serious things, at a heavy cost sometimes. All the way back to his first major league season, the Milwaukee Braves manager told Uecker, quote, "There's no room in baseball for a clown," end quote. Now, this seems like a pretty dumb thing to say because, of course, baseball is and has always been filled with clowns. Not only this, but clowning, lightening the mood, can be great for team morale. Famed Major League catcher turned announcer Tim McCarver said that Uecker kept the Cardinals loose in 1964 when they won the World Series. From McCarver, quote, "If Bob Uecker had not been on the Cardinals, then it's questionable whether we could have beaten the Yankees," end quote. That's a pretty big compliment. And when we go back to this statement, though, from Milwaukee Braves manager Charlie Dressen about there being no room for a clown, the comment was probably tempered by anger because Uecker was good at getting under people's skin, especially managers and GMs. In 1964, for a team picture, just before they snapped it, Uecker leaned over to Bob Gibson, who was sitting next to him, and said, "Wouldn't it be funny if we held hands?" Gibson agreed. So they did. They held hands, and nobody caught it at first. And you can Google this and take a look. Now, in 2026, you might say, what's the big deal? But in 1964, in a fairly straight-laced country, Uecker's prank was a punch in the face to Cardinals management. Not only could the hand-holding hint at homosexuality, but homosexuality between a white man and a black man. Uecker didn't care. The Cardinals would later retake the team photo, with Uecker and Gibson separated. That same year, Uecker borrowed a tuba from a band playing on the field, and he tried to catch fly balls with it during the game. To the delight of fans and the immense irritation of Cardinals manager John Keane. According to Cardinals teammate Mike Shannon, the tuba stunt was the reason John Keane didn't let Uecker play in any of the 7 games of the 1964 World Series. Uecker's antics also got him traded. Uecker liked to do impersonations, and one of the impersonations was of Cardinals GM Bob Howsam. According to Bob Gibson, in 1967, Howsam was engaged in a multiple player trade between the Cardinals and the Phillies. And Bob Uecker was a key part of the trade, in that Howsam told the Phillies, "If you don't take Uecker off our hands, there's no deal." Here's the thing. As honest as Uecker was on the field, at the cost of his own career, in his more than 50 years broadcasting the Brewers, he never criticized a player. Because he told people he knew what it was like. He knew how hard it was. And Uecker's was more enmeshed in the Brewers organization than perhaps any broadcaster. He'd constantly be in the clubhouse with players. He had nicknames for everyone. Brewers ace pitcher Brandon Woodruff remembered Uecker coming to celebrate with the team in 2018 when they clinched a playoff berth. From Woodruff, quote, "I was like, oh my God, he's right in the middle. Everybody stopped what they were doing and would come to him. I remember seeing that and thinking, this is the coolest thing. He did his dance in the middle with everybody, and that was kind of a tradition throughout." End quote. At this time in 2018, when Uecker was partying with the team, he would have been 83 years old. On this week's Extra Innings episode, we'll discuss the second to last player of Mr. Burns' old school all-star team, Honus Wagner, known by millions as that guy on that baseball card that's for some reason worth millions. But most people don't know that Wagner was a study in contradiction, born into an awkward, ungainly body that somehow propelled him to become the very best player in Major League Baseball for more than a decade. A man who sometimes tripped over his own feet in the field, also led the league in most offensive categories at one time or another. You can find this and 18 other unique episodes at Patreon/Midnight Library Baseball. Also, if you'd like to receive a weekly newsletter with new insights and updates, you can quickly sign up at midnightlibraryofbaseball.com. Okay, back to the show. Bob Uecker was many things, including a magician who used misdirection to move your mind away from the truth. If you listened to Uecker for 5 minutes, you'd think he was one of the worst ball players who ever lived. And yes, he was not a very good Major League player, but he was a Major League player. According to a 2007 academic study, the average length of a Major Leaguer's career is 5.6 years. And 1 out of every 5 players who makes it to the majors leaves after only 1 year. Bob Uecker beat the average. He did something millions of young men would have killed for and would die for. In fact, a while ago, a listener of the show went to a game and recorded proof of this. Just for some context, a while back I did an interview with baseball journalist Erica Block, and we got to talking about whether minor league players would make a deal to shorten their lifespan if it meant making it to the majors. Well, a listener named Derek, who heard this conversation, grabbed his recorder and went to a minor league game. Before the game, there was a panel of players signing autographs, and he went down the line and asked them, one by one, would they take a successful career in the majors if they ended up dying at 40 years old?
Okay, I got a hypothetical question.
What you got?
I can guarantee you 15 years in the majors, but you die at 40. Oof. Would you take that now? Here you go, buddy. Probably not, No?
He went from player to player, asking them the same question. And one after the next, they said, no, I wouldn't do that. Some considered it, but they all said no. Until this guy.
I can guarantee you get 15 years in the majors, 8 all-star games, but you die at 40. Would you take that trade? No?
I would.
You would?
I would.
Why so?
Because I want to play in the beach 50 years. Yes, I would.
Okay. How old are you now?
Now, to be clear, in Derek's deal with the devil question, he promised a great major league career. But how many millions of guys looking at Bob Uecker's self-described abysmal career were extremely jealous? How many of them would have traded, maybe not years of their lives, but a lot, to get 6 years in the major leagues, catching for the best pitchers in the game, sitting in dugouts, sharing all of those moments, if not on the field, then as close as you could get to it? I also can't help thinking about the sufferers of E16 syndrome. These are the men who have walked the earth for the last 100 years claiming to have played Major League Baseball when they actually didn't. We're talking thousands of men who said, yeah, I made it to the majors. They wanted this dream to be a reality so badly that they flat out lied to everyone in their lives. And I mentioned this before, but my friend Rob Scheinkoff just wrote a whole book on his research into this phenomenon, titled Baseball Imposters, The Dark Side of Fandom. But here are these people lying through their teeth about making it to the majors. And on the other side, you have Bob Uecker, who was actually in the majors for 6 years, playing it up as if it were the worst thing to happen to him. In fact, he said this to Johnny Carson.
I did not mean to demean your career, because just playing in the majors, of all the thousands and tens of thousands of youngsters who want to play baseball, the major leagues are the ultimate goal, right?
Well, and I was one of the unfortunate 10,000 that made it, John. I think that was the one thing that, if anything, hurt me in my career, was making the major leagues.
In other words, you think you would have been better if you didn't?
I think I would have been better off maybe as a serviceman, sergeant, top sergeant.
Right. Well, I never thought.
This whole bottom of the barrel of the majors is also an interesting perspective shift to me. Because again, you have millions of young guys who would kill to make it to the majors in any way. But then, once you get there, and all you do is warm up pitchers in the bullpen or sit on the bench, which was the case for Bob Uecker, that excitement and relief and satisfaction can start to wane. And this new mindset might have informed a lot of Uecker's sarcasm about his time in the big leagues. Now, I do believe that for the most part, when Uecker disparaged his career, he was joking, and that in fact he appreciated his time in the majors. At the same time, there must have been some regret, some bitterness, at least in the beginning. Because what major league player works that hard to get to the majors and then doesn't want to excel, doesn't want to get to the next level? So somewhere inside Uecker, I'm sure there was that part that in some way informed the self-deprecation. But what this truth points to is how solid Uecker must have been as a person to let go of the dream and the bitterness and embrace the reality and the true gifts and talents that he did possess. As it turned out, the worse he was, the better it ended up being for his comedy routine. And something else to remember here is that no matter how much he made fun of himself, Uecker's teammates and hundreds of other players in the majors knew that he was the real deal. No, he wasn't a great hitter, but even with his errors, he had a lifetime .988 fielding percentage, which put him in the top 200 all time if he'd had more games played. So on the one hand, for ball players and people inside baseball, here's this guy who can crack you up in a second, but also, you know he's one of you. No matter what he says to the contrary, he belongs. When we return to Bob Uecker's contribution to baseball and sports and entertainment, it is first and foremost this. He helped us take things less seriously most of the time. In a tribute article published in the New York Times, journalist Grant Brisbee highlighted the fact that baseball is serious, it is satisfying, but it is also silly. From Brisbee, quote, "It's a very silly sport, no way around it. It's a sport where you watch grown men in pajamas fail over and over again. Sometimes an older man will waddle onto the field, and he'll also be wearing pajamas for some reason. It can be the least important thing in the world and the most important thing in the world at the same time." End quote. It's incredible how, with just the tiniest shift of perspective, something that feels so important, feels like life or death, becomes a game, which is what it is. A game originally played by children. A game where the players, dressed in pajamas, doing something that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of humanity, make more money than neurosurgeons. When you recognize and tune into the fact that most things don't matter, you can better spend your time and energy on the things that do. Or you can choose to say, well, this doesn't really matter, but I still like it a lot, and I choose to care about it. And Bob Uecker helped people see this by leading the way. Much of the time, he was funny, he was cracking the jokes, but not all of the time. In 2024, the Brewers were one inning away from making it to the next level of the playoffs. They were up 2-0 in the ninth inning when the Mets rallied and ended up winning the game 4-2. At the end of the broadcast, Bob Uecker said, quote, "I'm telling you, that one had some sting in it." End quote. Since Uecker spent so much time making light of things, his serious moments were taken that much more seriously. For instance, when he talked near the end of his life about the notion of retiring from Brewers broadcasting.
I don't know what I would do, with no more. If I think of no more baseball for me, I don't know what that would be like. I got out of high school and I joined the Army and I signed a baseball contract. That's been it.
As a final tribute to Bob Uecker, we can pause and look around our lives. We can see what we're taking too seriously and laugh at the ridiculousness of our often skewed priorities. There's probably a lot to laugh about. There certainly was for Bob Uecker. We'll end tonight with an excerpt from Bob Uecker's Hall of Fame speech.
I was born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Actually, I was born in Illinois. My mother and father were on an oleomargarine run to Chicago back in 1934 because we couldn't get colored margarine in Wisconsin. The pain started, and my dad pulled off into an exit area, and that's where the event took place. There were 3 truck drivers there. One guy was carrying butter. One guy had frankfurters, and the other guy was a retired baseball scout who told my folks that I probably had a chance to play somewhere down the line. And that was the start of this Cinderella story that you're hearing today. I did not have a lot of ability as a kid. My dad wanted me to have everything that everybody else had. I think the first thing that he ever bought me was a football. And I was very young, and he didn't know a lot about it. He came from the old country. And I mean, we tried to pass it and throw it and kick it, and we couldn't do it, and it was very discouraging for him and for me. And we almost quit. And finally, we had a nice enough neighbor came over and put some air in it. And what a difference. Of course, any championship involves a World Series, the ring, the ceremony, the following season in St. Louis at Old Busch Stadium. And we were standing along the sideline. I was in the bullpen warming up the pitcher. And when they call my name for the ring, it's something that you never ever forget. And when they threw it out in the left field, I found it in the 5th inning, I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah. And once I spotted it in the grass, man, I was on it. I mean, it was unbelievable. But you know, of all the things that I've done, this has always been number one, baseball. The commercials, the films, the television series. I could never wait for everything to get over to get back to baseball. To all of you baseball fans around America and any place else, for your letters, your thoughts, your kindness for all of these years. It's been a great run, but number one has always been baseball for me. No matter what else I ever did, baseball was the only way I wanted to go. I thank you very much for your attention today. Thank you for having me, and congratulations to everybody here. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Next time, in the final episode of Season 4, we'll move from the past of radio and television and baseball to what's happening now and what we might expect of the future. The show is produced and edited by me, Ben Orlando. Music by Sergi Papkin and Ashot Danielian, and other artists at Pixabay and Artlist.io. Good night.